Gosh, I have so many favorite authors. On the adult side, I would say John Irving and George Saunders. And there's so many in YA, like Maureen Johnson and Holly Black and Cassandra Clare and Scott Westerfeld, Justine Lavalestier, David Levithan. I could go on and on and on, but that's a good start. Is this actually books?
Basically, I only like books that have things like dragons and evil. You're buzzing. You should use wool.
The story, do you think of the title or the story first?
Okay, so when I first wrote Shiver, it was not named Shiver. It was actually called Still Wolf Watching, which I thought was the best title ever known to man. And I sold the book to Scholastic, and they said, "Great news, we love your book. We like your title. We just have one question. Is it Still Wolf Watching or Still Wolf Watching?" Come again? Is it still wolf watching? Or is it still wolf watching? I don't know. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Did we change it? So after that, I made a list of titles, and I was listening to a lot of Cranberries those days, and Linger was on there, and also Shiver sounds a lot like Linger, so I put that on there. And also, I like the idea that, you shiver when you're cold, and you shiver when emo boys touch you, and, things like that. So, I like that. For me, usually the title comes second. Though, when I was a teen, I used to make long, long lists of titles that eventually I was going to write amazing epic novels to go along with. Not so good. Though, some of them, I might take them out for a whirl. I think Salamander is an awesome title. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I think I would say probably like more than 50% of my books, the title was changed after I submitted it because, for instance, the second Princess Diaries, I really wanted to call Princess of Puke. And the publisher was like, no. And I was like, why? It's so good. And they were like, try to picture it written in silver script on the cover. And then actually Abandon, which is the book I was just talking about, I really wanted to call A Date with Death. And I actually didn't even turn it in with that title because I knew that it's not going to go. So I really think that the title really, really matters, but what matters more is just like what matters is on the cover, what really matters more is what's inside the book. But I definitely think, like Maggie, of the book first, and then the title, which I often need help with, obviously.
I'm not really allowed to name things because I have a cat that I call Cat. I have a stuffed pig at home called Pig. And I often refer to my child as Boy. The boy, child, boy. So it's a little difficult for me. But sometimes the title just comes, like Going Bovine. I knew I was going to write a little novel called Going Bovine. The first Gemma book was called Untitled Gemma Book for a very long time. So sometimes the title just comes, and other times it takes forever.
More questions? None of the other writers might say okay? It's okay, no, they work. It's just like scared. What is your writing process? Well, my writing process is, I once heard this great quote that 90% of writing is actually not done in front of a computer on the paper, it's actually brainstorming, and that's really true for me. So for me, I usually spend one day writing, and then I'll spend the next day brainstorming, which normally involves me turning on music so loud that when I lay on the floor, my butt cheeks wiggle, and thinking about what I'm going to write next, because because if I don't know what I'm going to write next in the book, mostly what just happens is nothing. I tweet a lot. Some of you may be familiar with this process. But for me, I always start out with a mood rather than with characters or an actual plot. So it's like if you would go to the movies and you go, I kind of want to watch something with kissing. It'll make me cry. Rather than saying, I'd like to watch something with Johnny Depp where he goes through an amazing character arc and at the end he turns out to be totally redeemable and it's also a pirate. I mean, we don't really do that sort of thing, we just go for mood. So I just know what kind of story I want to tell first and then the story happens after that.
I get an idea, like something, like my mom is dating my teacher, or then she turns out to be a princess. Well, not my mom. Or, but Mia is not me. Or a girl who dies and goes to the underworld and then gets resuscitated and can't get rid of the guy from the underworld. But maybe she doesn't want to. I wouldn't. Don't tell my husband. So yeah, I get the idea first, but then I think about it for a really long time because I've sometimes started, I think that Maggie and I were talking about this, sometimes you'll start a book and maybe the idea doesn't stay with you, and so then you don't end up finishing the book. So I never start the book until I know exactly everything that's going to happen and what's going to happen at the end. Because you need, I would say it's like taking a trip. You need to know your destination before you start, or you're just taking a trip to nowhere. Or Cleveland. And my writing process is that every day I get up and I read what I wrote the day before, and then I write, I add some more. But the real problem is when you have a blank page, because then you can't read what you read the day before. So starting is always a little difficult for me. And that is when, yeah, I do a lot of tweeting and and looking on, e-online and kitten videos. Big.
I'm almost the opposite of Meg in that I never know where I'm going in life or on the page. I have no GPS at all, period. So what I often do is I'll get an idea and I have tons and tons of notebooks like that one. I'm responsible for the deforestation of Brazil. I'm sorry. I try to economize on napkins. But I take lots of notes, and so there's an idea that will stay with me for a long time, and I'll just keep asking myself questions and write lots of things, and it's usually almost always wrong. And by the time I sit down to write the book, I get rid of things. Oh, Josh drew that. The boy. He does actually have a name because he has a father. But so for me, it's often I have to write a lot of things wrong before I write what feels right, and I'm always kind of trying to find my way. And then at some point I will get stuck and I will run into my husband and say, you know what, I'm going to tell this whole story with hand puppets. And he'll say, no, you're not, and no more coffee.